Hello, Elaine. Good morning. Okay, good morning, Elaine and Jacoby. Good morning, Helen and Warren and Keith and Robert Berger. Shalom, nice to see you all. Also to our friends on Facebook, to Ed and Terry, Boker Tov. Let us begin Torah study today, just as we warm up. Hope everybody had a nice Shabbos. Let's just start off with a quick Hayom Yom, which I think is very relevant and connected to specifically what we're going through with our virus situation. Today's Hayom Yom is the 16th day of Sivan. The early sages, who were like angels, may their merit protect us, have already determined that the healing of the soul is like the healing of the body. The crucial first step when it comes to healing the soul, like it is when it comes to healing the body, is to identify the location of the illness, whether it's caused by crassness, grossness, and corruption of his physical body, or by a failing in his soul powers. The person being inclined to undesirable traits like arrogance or falsehood and the like. Or is the source of the malady maybe habit, poor Torah education, or unwholesome environment having brought on bad habits? You've got to basically be able to identify the source of your problems. If you, let's say, are struggling with, I don't know, bad habits, you can't bring yourself to daven, let's say. Why is that? Is that because you didn't go to Hebrew school? Is that because you were maybe abused as a child, God forbid, and impacted your body somehow? Or is it your soul that was abused emotionally? Or is it your lack of education? You got to be able to identify the source of the illness, just like a physical illness. Without ascertaining the specific site of the illness and the cause of infection, it is impossible to begin to heal him. One can only prescribe an orderly, proper conduct in all matters, what to do and what to avoid. Until you identify the source of the illness, you can only institute a healthy regimen. What to do and what not to do. To do good in terms of observing mitzvahs, designating times for Torah study and acquiring good character traits, and also to turn away from evil. So until you identify the source of the illness, all that you can really do is incorporate good habits and avoiding the bad ones. But once you identify the cause of the illness, now you're halfway to the cure, you're on your way. Most urgent of all, however, is that the patient make himself aware of two things. Number one, to know that he is ill. If you don't know that you're ill, you're in deep trouble. If you think that you're healthy, Isaiah the prophet says in his rebuke to the Jewish people, they call light dark, and dark they call light. Sweet they call bitter, and bitter they call sweet. If you think that your state of dysfunction is actually healthy, then you're so beyond healing, you don't even recognize that you're ill, never mind to recognize the source of the illness, right? Number two, so the first thing is to recognize that you're ill. Number two, to know that he can be cured with hope and absolute trust that with God's help, he will indeed be cured of his sickness. So number one, to realize that you are sick. Number two, to realize that with trust in God, with hope and absolute trust, that with God's help, he will indeed be cured of his sickness. Now, it's interesting that he mentions over here in Ayom Yom that it's with hope and absolute trust, which ties in perfectly to our segue today, which is the gates of trust. We're wrapping up the gates of trust. We're very close to the end. We've come a long way, and it would be very nice to finish it up nicely together as a team, as a community. It is trust, which is the key element, the key ingredient that brings us our salvation. What we learn in the gates of trust is a paradigm shift in our relationship with God. That instead of judging by the vision of our eyes, the gates of trust helps us transform our perception of reality from a state of dysfunction to a state of function, just like we learned in a Yom Yom moments ago. If you think that illness is healthy and healthy is illness, you're in deep trouble. You know, there are people who think that they're healthy and really they're struggling from terrible disorders or terrible psychological disorders or psychotic. You know, when someone's psychotic, they actually think that they're healthy, but they're not. It's a very messed up situation. What the gates of trust does is that it gives us perspective to shift our perception of reality. You know, we've learned this also in Tanya, that the purpose of man's presence on this earth is to disidentify with his default setting and to re-identify with his true identity. What I mean is that we have two souls. We have a godly soul and an animal soul. And we're born identifying with our animal soul. The moment you're born, even before you're born, you already have an animal soul. And your godly soul doesn't enter until the bris, when it starts entering. And it doesn't end entering until the bar mitzvah, the bat mitzvah. It's only at the bar and bat mitzvah that your godly soul finishes entering your body. It's a very late bloomer. So we're very strongly identified with our animal soul for those first 12 or 13 years until the godly soul enters at a very, very great disadvantage. Our purpose in life, according to Tanya, is to realign ourselves from our animal soul and to re-identify with our godly soul. This is what life is about. And we'll see that in for example, the story of the prospective convert who comes to Hillel. And he says to Hillel, I'd like you to convert me to Judaism while you teach me Torah as I stand on one foot. A famous story. And Hillel tells him, as long as you can love your fellow like yourself, that's the whole Torah. Everything else is commentary. What Hillel was telling him, not just social justice here, not just saying to him that if you can be a mensch, everything else is just commentary. What about all the religious components of Torah that are not social in nature? How does Shabbat or idol worship or tefillin have anything to do with loving your fellow like yourself? What Hillel was saying to him, that the only way you can love your fellow is by seeing the godly soul within them, and how that godly soul within them is an extension of the godly soul within yourself. If you can identify with your godly soul, you will love your fellow like yourself. And everything else in Judaism will fall into place. So Hillel was advocating this paradigm shift of being able to shift from a default setting in which we were created as identifying with ego, animal soul, and re-identifying with humility, with our godly soul. So as we near the end of the gates of trust, that's really the mindset that we've come to. And I'd like to maybe to illustrate it with a story of a traveler who came across a sage. It's a Hasidic story of a traveler who comes across a sage, and he's shocked by the abject poverty that he sees in the home of the sage. There's no couches, there's barely any furniture. The traveler says to the sage, How can you live like this? What about the basic comforts of life? Granite countertops, chandeliers, leather couches. Where is this? To which the sage responds to the traveler. He says, and who are you to ask? I don't see your leather couches. I don't see your chandeliers or your granite countertops. The traveler responds. He says, of course I don't have that. I'm just a traveler. I'm traveling. My home is, somewhere else. I'm traveling. When I travel, I don't take the kitchen sink with me. I don't take my furniture with me. I just take my bare necessities that I need to accompany me on the way. But when I get home, of course, I'll have all my furniture. I'll have my granites and I'll have my chandeliers and I'll have my leather couches. Says the sage, I too am a traveler. I don't really live here. He says, no, you don't live here? He says, no. My soul is on a journey. I come from heaven. I'm traveling on the way back to heaven. I'm only here for a temporary short time. I'm on a journey. And because I'm on a journey, I don't take the kitchen sink with me and the leather couches. All that stuff is at home. My comfort's there at home. Here, I'm on business. I'm traveling. My entire life in this world is traveling. And these are the words of the sage to the traveler. I'm just like you. I'm also a traveler. You see, we live our lives identifying with our animal soul, with our sense of ego, our sense of need to sustain and nourish ourselves, to care for ourselves, a self-centered reality. But it's this story that shifts our perspective to realize that, I don't actually live here. I come from heaven. I'm on the way back to heaven. I am a godly soul, merely garbed in a body and in an animal soul for the duration of my time in this world. I don't really live on the airplane. I live at home. And when you think about this story, it puts your mindset, your life into perspective as you realize that my priorities are a little messed up. Because here I am, I'm so focused and concerned about the needs of my body in this world, my financial needs, my medical needs, my physical, coarse, bodily needs in this world, when in reality, I'm just a traveler. I don't really live here. My permanent residence is up in heaven, beneath the heavenly throne, in the presence of God in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden. Here, I'm only for, think about it, 70, 80, 120 years. What is 120 years vis-a-vis infinity? If you spend infinity in Garden of Eden and you spend 120 years in this world, where do you really live? Think about that. And it's the gates of trust that shifts our perspective to help us identify our true identity, not being in this world, but in the Garden of Eden. And that our true sense of self is not our body, but our godly soul. And hence, when we reanalyze our relationship with money, things fall into perspective, into a whole new focus, as we realize that I don't need to obsess over money. When I realize that the same God who sent me on this mission, the same God who endowed me with life, is the same God that has provided for all of my needs, that has provided for all the needs of all of humanity, 7 billion people, almost 8 billion people, that has taken care of me my entire life until this day. It's that same God that continues to provide for me and will continue to provide for me. So I don't need to stress out. I don't need to panic about where my sustenance is going to come from. And this is the mindset of the one who trusts in God, is that he's experienced this paradigm shift. He's not worried about where his bread is going to come from, because he knows God is my life source. I come from God, I'm going to God, and I'm here on just a special mission. And with this perspective, you're able to realign your relationship with money in general. You see, the non-believer, the one who does not trust in God, is seeking like those SOS rings. He's seeking something to grab a hold onto. He needs what we're calling in the gates of trust a security blanket. He needs something to say, if all else fails, at least I can hold on to this. So the one who doesn't trust in God yearns for some sort of financial security to be able to know that everything will be okay. But it's the one who trusts in God that leaves go. He says, no, I don't need to stress out. I don't need to feel anxious. I don't need to grab onto some sort of financial security blanket, because I know that I have the greatest security blanket of all, and that is God Almighty, who is backing me, supporting me, has supported all of mankind, and will continue undoubtedly to support me through the rest of my life as well. So right now we're halfway through the 7 reasons why it's ridiculous for us to seek a guarantee, a security, a pledge, a collateral from God when it comes to financials. That instead of relying on your job, on your stock market, on your investments, on your real estate, your trust is purely in God. It's not in any of those above mentioned. Because if you don't trust God, then you're effectively asking him for a pledge or a guarantee, and this is flawed in 7 ways. So we spoke already about the first 3 of the 7 ways why it's a flawed perspective to ask God for security, why you can't just trust blindly in God, why it doesn't make any sense rationally for us to choose to trust in an investment or in a security or in a collateral rather than to trust directly in God. And what we're going to do right now is cover the last 4 items on last 4 explanations, 4 reasons why it just doesn't make any rational sense for the one who trusts in God to seek out something to hold on to for security, for peace of mind, when really your peace of mind should come straight from God. We're going to explain that rationally in 4 more reasons. In the meantime, I'd just like to welcome Marty and Hannah and Andy and Harvey, as well as Stephanie, who's walking, Rosa, Miriam, and Judy Schuster to our Torah study today. So again, friends, if you have any questions or comments, please do post on YouTube or on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. Let's go through these 4 more reasons. So the next reason is, the 4th one, is that you take a pledge only from someone who can't guarantee repayment. Obviously, in the case of God, that is not the case. He who takes a pledge from his fellow does so for one of 3 reasons: lest the fellow become impoverished and unable to repay him, or lest he be tight-fisted with what he has, making it impossible to collect from him, or out of fear that his fellow may die or disappear. None of these apply to God. The pledge is a cure for these ills in human relationships, but if people were safe from these 3 risks, you wouldn't worry the guy was going to go bankrupt. You wouldn't worry that the guy was going to become tight-fisted, or that he was going to die or disappear. If people were safe from these 3 risks in their relationship with others, it would undoubtedly be shameful, be embarrassing for them to demand the pledge. Now, these 3 concerns are totally inapplicable to the Creator, may be exalted. Hence, it is much more shameful and absurd to demand a pledge from him. As Scripture states, mine is silver and mine is gold. When we give charity, we're giving from your money, God, to charity. So I don't feel bad about giving away money to charity, because I know it's yours that I'm giving back to you anyways. Riches and honor come from you. So it's just basically embarrassing to ask God for a security pledge. You're exhibiting the antithesis of trust by seeking something to give you peace of mind. So if your peace of mind comes from your investment or your job and not straight from God, then your fundamental understanding of financials is flawed. It's that paradigm shift. You're not a resident, you're a traveler. And when you can shift that mindset to realize that you are just a traveler, that's when things fall into beautiful perspective. Let's do 3 more reasons as to why your peace of mind needs to come straight from God. Number 5, the divine pledge can be the source of your worries. The one who takes a pledge from his fellow will feel secure with it, since he expects to collect from it and benefit either directly from the collateral or from its exchange value. But as to he who thinks that he will be secure from all worldly concerns if the Creator provides him in advance with all his needs, his argument is a false one, for he cannot be sure of holding on to the money, as disaster may strike. You might get a coronavirus, right? And separated from him, as it says in Scripture, at a young age, you will leave him. So your collateral is not going to help you. You could slip out of your fingers in 1 second. Furthermore, his argument that he will attain peace of mind. Somebody told me the other day that he owned a massive piece of real estate in Brooklyn, a very famous piece of real estate. Somebody offered him $40 million to buy it, and he refused for whatever reason. little while later, the city of the city of Brooklyn, of New York, whatever, exercised eminent domain, and they took it away from him. That's it. He lost it. Right? You think that you're holding on to something as your collateral, your security blanket, your peace of mind. The next thing you know, bam, it's gone. Furthermore, his argument that he will attain peace of mind by achieving what he desires of material wealth is a lie, and betrays ignorance of what he wishes to attain. If you think that your peace of mind is going to come from that physical entity, you're betraying ignorance, because the physical wealth doesn't come from the bank or the real estate or the investment or the stock. It comes straight from God. For on the contrary, it could be a major cause of worry and anxiety. Right? As our masters of blessed memory said, the more possessions, the more worry. So you think you're getting peace of mind by building collateral? Forget about it. The more you have, the more possessions, the more worry, the more anxiety you have. That's the basic principle that we know, that the person who has more possessions is more concerned, not less concerned. Why is he concerned? Because he knows that he's human. He knows that he could very easily and very quickly lose it. Good morning, Stacy. Welcome to the Torah study. Now, to Elaine's question, doesn't the traveler metaphor advocate an ascetic life? Is that a pronounce? Ascetic life. So doesn't the traveler metaphor advocate an ascetic life? And I'd say no. It may be in the case of the story, Elaine, that he was, without literally any furniture, that he was advocating a life of removed from worldly pursuits. But the reason why the story has been passed on to us is because it shifts our mindset in terms of our priorities. You don't have to live like that without furniture in order to reach that level. It's a mindset of realizing that the physical possessions are not important to you. Right? You don't stress out over your physical possessions because you know that your true home is not here. So that's the way I interpret the story, Elaine, and I don't see it as all or nothing. It's not like you have to identify with the mindset of the sage. You have to have no furniture. I think it's more of a mindset to realize priorities and home versus things that are transient and less important. Okay, now 2 more reasons we have as to why it makes no sense to put your trust and your peace of mind in your physical securities as opposed to putting them in God. So the second last reason is that there's no need for a pledge when you'll undoubtedly be repaid more than your investment, more than what you put into it, right? Take a look. So number 6, one who takes a pledge from his fellow if he had been certain that his fellow would pay him back earlier than agreed upon, and would, out of sheer kindness, reward him for waiting for his money with twice the sum that was owed to him, then he would never have taken a pledge from him. If you knew that the money owed to you would be paid back earlier and you'd get paid double, you would never ask for a pledge if you knew that was going to happen. And as for the Creator, may he be exalted, whose benevolence and great favor, present and past, are known to us. We know that God has given us much more than we deserve, who is known to requite acts of charity and obedience with reward that cannot be imagined, let alone described as it is written. No eye has seen, O God, besides yours, what God has prepared for those that wait for him. It is much more of a disgrace in such a case to demand a pledge from him. When we realize the kindness, the benevolence that God has granted us, it is embarrassing. It's downright insulting to say, God, I don't trust you. I need to trust in a physical item in case you don't deliver the goods. My brother in Manhattan is going through a difficult time. A lot of people are leaving New York, and people that are prepaid for school and for camp are pulling out and they're asking for a refund. So they're saying, look, we're not coming back to school next year, so they need a refund. So my brother realized that he had to pay back quite a sum of money. So he actually went to the Ohel. He went to the Rebbe's graveside. He had to pay, I think, $65,000 back to people that already prepaid for a Chabad. That's very, very, very difficult because we are charities at the end of the day. We don't, So he went to the Ohel to daven, to daven to Hashem, to ask the Rebbe to be an advocate before God on high. While he's at the Ohel, he gets a call. And some a member of the community calls up and he says, Rabbi, I'm thinking about you. I know you're going through a difficult time right now. I'd like to wire you $80,000 just to help you through these times. My brother was shocked. He was floored. It happened just last week. He was floored. He said, you won't believe it. I'm actually at the Rebbe's Ohel right now, praying for a blessing, praying for salvation, and you just called me. The guy broke down in tears. When you realize the miracles that are going on all around us, when you look back at your life and you realize the extraordinary miracles that you've experienced, you're humbled as you put things into perspective and you realize that God has been far kinder to me than I've ever deserved. You know, if you think about Muttel the tailor, you remember Muttel the tailor from Fiddler on the Roof? As I don't remember exactly the scene. I think he was getting married, or Yentl or someone agreed to get married to him. And I think the father-in-law, Tevye, finally agreed to let the daughter marry him, something like that. He goes out to the fields and he sings a song of praise to God. And he says, for out of the small lump of clay, God has made a man today. I would sing it, but you don't want me to sing it. For out of a small lump of clay, God has made a man today. God has been so extraordinarily kind to us. So much more than we could ever be deserving. Think about this for a moment, friends. What God has done for you. If you just look back at your life. Think of your achievements. Think of the relationships that you've built. The wife, the husband, the children, the grandchildren. Think about the homes, the real estate, the wealthy possessions, the savings that you've done, the charity that you've given, the reputation that you've built. Think about how much you really are deserving and where you're coming from. The kind of extraordinary blessings that God has endowed you with. And when you think about that, you're utterly humbled and you say, wow. And I'm going to say to God, you know, God, right now, I think I'm going to need a little bit more security moving forward. So before I trust in you, I need some collateral. That's not going to be good. And if you remember, the doctrine of blind trust is that when you trust blindly in God without calculating God's power to provide, then God reciprocates blindly without calculating your worthiness or whether you deserve it. So when you seek out something else for your peace of mind besides for God, you're actively repelling the divine blessing from upon you. Something to think about. We have one final reason to cover here today. Good morning, Ed. Shalom. By the way, we have no sponsor for today's Torah study. If anybody would like to dedicate today's Torah study, you can do so at jewishgardens.com/donate, or by calling the office 561-624-2223. That's 624-2223. I want to thank the community because since we launched the daily Torah study sponsorships, we haven't missed a single day. So thank you very, very much, everybody, for your generous support through these very difficult times. The seventh reason why, the final reason why this guy is so amazing, the Rabbeinu Bechaya, he's an 11th century scholar from Saragossa, Spain, to think about how organized his mind is in building up the case, the rational argument for trusting in God for the case of blind trust. The Rebbe would often quote this 11th century work for people who are going through difficult times. And if you're going through a difficult time, I encourage you to listen to this series and to re-listen to the series. You'll find the whole series listed at jewishgardens.com/trust. That's jewishgardens.com/trust. In fact, our series has recently been picked up by our friends at Chayenu, which is the daily Torah study subscription Torah publication. They mail Torah study to your door every week. Beautiful organization. Chayenu.org. That's Chayenu. Chayenu.org. And you can find our classes being picked up at gatesoftrust.org. That's gatesoftrust.org, where they've picked up our Gates of Trust Torah study and they've broadcast them there. The final reason why you shouldn't ask God for a security, for a collateral, for your peace of mind, but rather your peace of mind should be in God alone, is because you don't know that you're going to be able to deliver the goods. How do you know that you're going to be able to deliver the goods for God to repay your investment? Why should God give you any sustenance? Because you claim that you deserve it, right? But how do you know that you're going to do anything that deserves it? How do you know you're going to live that long to be able to deserve the pledge? He who takes a pledge from his fellow does so only if he's able to supply the latter with the goods for which he takes the pledge as security. But one who demands a pledge from the Creator may be exalted in the form of advanced favors, is unable to render the service that is due for them. He is not even certain that he will be able to pay his old debts, much less his new ones to God. For the righteous man can meet his obligations to God for his goodness to him only by means of the help that God extends to him. As one of the pious said in his praises, quote, even the intelligent person who knows you does not glory in his own accomplishment, but in your name and in your mercy. For you have prepared his heart to know you, for through you will all the descendants of Israel be found worthy, and in you will they glory, saying, we glory in God continually and give thanks to your name forever, Selah, unquote. Tehillim 44. It's only through God's kindness that we're able to ever do whatever we do. So whatever we deserve, we work to deserve God's blessing, is only through God's kindness anyway. So if God decides to pull the plug and, God forbid, take away our life or take away our health or take away our freedom, then we're not able to perform the deeds that will be deserving of the pledge that we're so desperately seeking, the peace of mind. So anyways, your ability to achieve and to earn is in the hands of God. So for you to say that God owes you a pledge is a fundamental misunderstanding of God's kindness and providence over you. And these, my friends, concludes the 7 reasons why it's ridiculous to put our trust in anything other than God. It simply doesn't make any rational sense. When you look at the bigger picture, when you go to the traveler mindset of the traveler and the sage, it doesn't make any sense to put our trust in the here and now. You've got to think of the bigger picture to realize that God is governing. God is the one who's sending us and dispatching us on a mission. God is providing for our needs. He's covering for us. And to ignore the governance and the providence of God in our lives on a daily basis is deeply insulting and actually counterproductive in terms of procuring the blessing that we need. If you want the blessing, you throw your trust in God. And the words of King David in Psalms 55, Hashlech al Hashem yehavcha, throw upon God your trust, and that's what's going to bring it gushing, raining upon you. And that really concludes the second to last chapter of the Gates of Trust. We have one final chapter to reach. We'll be covering that hopefully in the next couple of days, where we'll finish up the Gates of Trust and make a special siyum, a l'chaim, a conclusion of Torah study. And with that, friends, I'm going to switch over to our meditation and prayer course. We are now nearing the end of the course, of the Shema Yisrael prayer. We're working through it very carefully as we're building up our Hebrew word diaries. I think we're up to word number 36 in our Hebrew word diary, where we are building up words that we are understanding. We're understanding the root of the word. Then we are understanding what it means. After we understand what it means, we know how to read and understand what it means. We're then trying to go a little bit deeper into the meditation of that Hebrew word so that we can come across word families. We're actually building up word families so that we'll be able to really recognize the Hebrew words in the various places where they show up. You'll learn one word in the Shema, and as you learn that one word in the Shema, you'll notice that it comes up in many, many other places throughout the Torah, throughout davening, and even in regular Hebrew conversation in Israel. And you'll realize, wow, I know this. And that's what's happening as we build up our Hebrew word diaries. I just encourage you to take index cards and to write the Hebrew word on the one side and the English word on the other side so that you're able to understand and go through them multiple times a day. If you do go through them multiple times a day, what's going to happen is that you will eventually come to burn them into your memory, engrave them into your memory in a very beautiful way so that you are familiar with those words. And just like you're familiar with an English word, when you see the word T-A-B-L-E, you know exactly what that is. So too, when you see the word Kuf Shin Reish, you'll know that means a knot. That means to connect. That means to telephone someone like we learned in our previous lesson. And I'm good to go because I know what that word means. By just repeating it over and over, we're up to 36 words in our Hebrew word diary. And we're on to our goal of 100 words. We are working through the Shema Yisrael prayer. If you have a prayer book, please open it up to page 42. If you don't have a prayer book, you can find it online at HebrewBooks.org/16091. That's HebrewBooks.org/16091. And you can turn to page 42, where right now we are near the bottom of the page. I think it's 4 lines from the bottom of the Shema, first paragraph of the Shema. And we're learning now the word Yadecha. Ukshartam leot al yadcha. And you shall tie them as a sign. We learned those 2 words in the last lesson. And you shall tie them as a sign. Al yadecha, on your hand. Now the word al is ayin and lamed. We've learned this word before. It's like El Al. El Al Airlines, which is a beautiful name for an airline. El Al means to, up. Al means up or on. That's ayin lamed, means up or on. And El means to. So El Al means to, up. A nice name for an airline. That's a short word. It's catchy. It's a nice name, El Al. So Al means on. It's a very common word. Certainly a word which you should be remembering. Let me see if it's in our word diaries. I'm curious to see if I did put it on our word diary. I can't remember. I'm not sure, but it's a good word to add. Al. I don't see it in our word diary here. No. We should probably add it because it's a preposition. Al means on. So we should probably add that word. It's ayin lamed. I don't have my cards with me right now, but it's an ayin and a lamed. If you're looking for the Hebrew, if you want to familiarize yourself with the Hebrew word or the Hebrew letters, you should download an app called RIIH on the Google Play Store or the App Store. RIIH will cost you $1.95, $99 maybe, and you can just review the Hebrew letters in a very cute way. It's a nice way to learn it. Sa'al, we should really make that word number 37 in our Hebrew word diary. It's a very straightforward word, but the word I would like to focus on today is yad. Yad, which means hand. Yad, yud and daled. It's a 2-letter word, which means a hand. Yad, yud and daled. The word comes up very, very frequently in our lexicon. You know, we say in there's a verse in Psalms that says, "If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its cunning. Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yemini." Obviously, our right hand is our right hand, right? He knows the map like the back of his hand, right? It's something which we're extremely familiar with. It's something which we're intuitively familiar with. So just like, when Steve Jobs was doing the iPhone, he was frustrated that they had a stylus to write with. He's like, why do you have to write with a pen? We should be able to write with your finger. Your finger comes to you. So our right hand is something which we intuitively are familiar with. And just like I can't forget my right hand, so too, I dare not forget my connection to Jerusalem. But this word, yad, yud and daled, very powerful, very frequent word. Let's look at the applications of the word yad. Let's take a look at it. So first of all, ketav yad is the handwriting. Ketav means writing. So writing of yad, ketav yad means writing of the hand. That's handwriting. When you shake someone's hand, something you're not supposed to do today during Corona, is lechitzat yad. It's the squeezing of the hand. Lechitzat yad means a hand to shake, a handshake. More specifically in Hebrew, it's a hand squeeze, lechitzat yad. When somebody's rachav yad, it means that they're generous. Generous. Rachav yad means broad of hand. Rachav yad, that means generous. And kaf yad would be the palm of the hand. Kaf yad is the palm of the hand. In the verse, you'll see it frequently in the Torah, this word yad, often with a suffix, with a letter at the end to maybe give it possession. For example, when Abraham was bringing his son Isaac upon the altar, was raising him up upon the altar, in that difficult story of the binding of Isaac, it was the 10th test of Abraham. Abraham was never actually commanded to sacrifice his son upon the altar. He was only commanded to tie his son upon the altar. And the test was to see whether Abraham would go ahead with it or not. And he did, with alacrity. He passed the test with flying colors. So when Abraham had Isaac bound upon the altar, by the way, Isaac was 36 years old at the time. He was no baby. When he was up there on the altar, Abraham was preparing to slaughter his child because that's what God commanded him to do. An angel comes running out and he says, Vayomer, and he tells him, Al tishlach yadcha el anar. Don't send your hand to the lad. Ve'al ta'as lo me'uma, and don't do anything to him. Al tishlach yadcha, do not send your hand to the lad. Your hand, withhold your hand. This word, once again, it's just a little example of how this word comes up in our regular Torah reading. I mean, it's just Torah reading. You look at this word, you say yad. Yad means a hand. And now we know, don't throw your hand. Don't send your hand. Don't touch him. Don't touch the lad. In fact, Rabbi Lau, who's the former chief rabbi of Israel, a very beautiful orator. He was a survivor of Buchenwald. He lost his mother. Last time he saw his mother was when his mother pushed him away in Buchenwald. And she said, go away from me, I don't want to see you again. And indeed, she never saw him again. It was very painful for an 8-year-old child to understand this. But she was saving him by pushing him away at Buchenwald. And he wrote a book called Al Tishlach Yadcha El Anar. Don't send your hand to the boy. It was about his story, about the boy who lost his family, who lost his world, who lost his mother at the concentration camps. A beautiful, beautiful piece of writing. I see Kobe is writing over here in the comments, hand and name, Yad Vashem. So Yad Vashem, you surely have heard of Yad Vashem, which is the world's most famous Holocaust Memorial Museum. It's in Yerushalayim, $100 million Holocaust museum, utterly haunting and beautiful and painful all at the same time. Very difficult experience to go through there because you really sense the Holocaust. They did a very good job. It's called Yad Vashem. What does Yad Vashem mean? Literally, it translates as a hand and a name. A hand and a name. What does it mean, a hand and a name? So Kobe's explaining it means never forget. It's like meant to mean a memorial. It's like a reminder that you'll never forget. But it actually comes from a verse in the Torah where the son of David, I think it was Avshalom, who died without children, and they made for him a Yad Vashem, a hand and a name they made for him. They made him a memorial. In fact, he's buried right there outside of the Temple Mount, in the valley next to Zechariah the prophet, is the Yad Avshalom, it's called. The hand of Avshalom, because it's like a hand, it's a memorial. I'm not sure why the memorial is called a hand. I can understand the second word, Shem. Shem means a name. You're making a name for someone. It's like when you name a building. You name a book. You name a program after someone, you're giving them a memorial. But when you give a hand, I'm not sure. Maybe a hand is like something outside of yourself, which is a part of yourself. Maybe that's what it means. Just like a hand is outside of yourself, it's an extension of you. That's probably what it means. So too, when you make a memorial for someone, you're making them a hand. It's like an extension of them. It's a reaching out of theirs. It's a hand and a name. So there you go. So the Yad means a memorial. Good point there, Kobe. Thank you for sharing that. We say about Ishmael, it says in the Torah that Abraham was concerned about Ishmael. His behavior was inappropriate. This is the father of the Arabs. And God tells him, Yado bakol v'yad kol bo. It says, Hu yeh per adam. You'll be a wild man. He'll be a wild man. The Ishmaelites, the Arabs, will be wild. Yado bakol, his hand will be in everyone. V'yad kol bo, and the hand of everyone will be in him. If you think about it in terms of oil. God was saying his hand is going to be in everything. The oil that the Arabs seem to have is everywhere. Everybody has oil, and oil is in everything. So it's interesting. That's my interpretation of what that means. But once again, you see in the verse the word yad. Yad means a hand. His hand is in everything, and the hand of everything is in him. When something is handmade, we say it's melechet yad. It's work of a hand. And what happens when you wash your hands for bread? It's called al netilat yadayim. Yadayim is the plural of yad. Al netilat yadayim, on the raising or on the elevating of the hands. So all these words show you it's all the same word coming up in so many different places that we are very familiar with them. where you see the word coming up. A watch in Hebrew is called sha'on yad, a hand watch, a wrist watch. In English, a wrist watch. In Hebrew, it's called sha'on yad, a watch of the hand. It's interesting, it's called a sha'on yad, a watch of the hand, and not a watch of the wrist. It almost seems that in English, it's more appropriate because it really is not in the hand, it's on the wrist. Maybe it could have been on the arm. I'm not sure which part of if this qualifies as the hand or the arm. But in Hebrew, it's called sha'on yad, a hand watch. And when somebody has two left hands, in Hebrew, you'll say shtei yadayim smoliot. He's got two left hands, shtei yadayim smoliot. And what do we say when you come out of Egypt? When we read the Haggadah and we say in the Haggadah that God took us out of Egypt with an outstretched hand, we say biyad chazaka, biyad chazaka uvizroa netuya, which means with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. That's what we read in the Haggadah, that God had a strong hand and an outstretched arm. It's yad chazaka. It's interesting, Maimonides, who wrote the commentary, the Encyclopedia of the Torah, it was the first one ever to take the Torah, which is all over the place. The laws of Torah spread out everywhere. It's like an ocean. And he classified the ocean of Torah into clearly defined volumes, like an encyclopedia, 14 volumes. And he called his 14-volume Magnus Opus, he called it the Yad HaChazaka, the strong hand, a reference to the biblical exodus from Egypt, which was with a strong hand. Why did he call it a strong hand? Because remember, in Hebrew, every word, every letter has a mathematical value. It's not just a sound, it's also a value. It's an absolute value. So the word yad is made up of two letters, the yud and the daled. The yud has the numerical value of 10, and the yad, the daled, the fourth letter, is 4. So the yud is the 10th letter, the daled is the 4th letter. 10 plus 4 is 14. So yad is 14. So yad hachazaka means the strong 14, a reference, like a veiled reference to the 14 volumes encyclopedia, which Maimonides put into the entire Torah. And he classified the Torah into 14 volumes. And of course, into the fact that the Torah is the strong hand, which is the secret to our survival. When we study Torah, Istakel be'oraita ovara alma, I wrote an email about this on Friday, that God looked into the Torah and he created the world, that the Torah is the blueprint of creation. It's the DNA of the universe. Torah is the HTML source code of the world. When we study Torah, then everything in the world unfolds properly. When we neglect the study of Torah, then everything implodes. This is what happened when the Jews were attacked by the nation of Amalek. It says they were attacked by Amalek because there was a chink. There was I don't know how to pronounce that word. There was a hole in their armor because they neglected the study of Torah. When you neglect the study of Torah, that's when you're vulnerable to attack. When you are strong in the study of Torah, that's when your defense is strong, which is why when we announced the quarantine, I think it was March 15th on a Sunday night, we announced that we were closing our shul for services. It was the very next morning that we opened online Torah study on YouTube and Facebook, because we needed to strengthen the study of Torah to serve as a protection. And that's the reason why Maimonides says, Yad HaChazaka, the mighty hand, which is the Torah, the 14 volumes of Torah, because Torah is a mighty hand. It is what protects us, like a fist. Like, I guess, what do they call those? This knuckle. When the hooligans when they punch with those knuckle busters, whatever they're called, iron knuckles. That's what protects you. When you're in trouble and you got a strong fist, you can protect yourself. It's like our tank. It's our fighter jet, is the study of Torah. So that's really the meditation here. When you think about the word yad, you can think of the word 14, which is the encyclopedia of Torah, which is that the Torah is our hand. The Torah is our fist. The Torah is our protector. The Torah is 14 volumes, and our fist is 14, because the Torah is what protects us from all harm. That is the meditation of our defense. I see Andy's asking a question. Some tombstones have a hand on them. Is that from the Yad Vashem derivation? I believe not, Andy. I believe that the reason that those tombstones have a hand on them is because it's a sign that there lies buried a Kohen. And the Kohanim, one of the symbols of the Kohanim is they put up their hands like this, in the V shape of both hands, because that's how they bless the people. It is this, from last week's Torah portion we read about in the Torah just this past Shabbos, the priestly blessing, which the priests, the Kohanim, were endowed with the power to bless the Jewish people. Why they specifically were endowed with this power is a very beautiful reason, maybe beyond the pale of this conversation, but it is the priests that bless the people with their hands, and that's why one of the traditional signs to put on the tomb of a Kohen is a hand. Got it? Any other questions coming in? Let's see. Oh, brass knuckles, Mickey, that's what it's called. I'd like to welcome Whitney from Amsterdam. Whitney, who's recently joined our Torah study sessions from Amsterdam. Good to have you with us. And yeah, I'm glad you got that. And any other comments coming in? Thank you, Elaine, as well, for the brass knuckles. And that's it. So with that, I think that I'm going to call it a day over here. And would love to hear your feedback on how we're doing on the meditation and prayer classes. You may have noticed that I've evolved them a little bit. Would love to hear your feedback on the meditation and prayer classes. Please send me an email to rabbi@jewishgardens.com. That's rabbi@jewishgardens.com. Would love to hear feedback on all the classes in general. Send me your questions, comments, or critique. Don't forget that on Thursday at 2:45 p.m., Chana and I both are doing another AMA session, Ask Me Anything. AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. Please send us our questions. It makes them much more fun when we have your questions in advance, so we can plan and strategize a sequence for the show, so we don't have to, fumble through looking for questions. We know what we're coming into the show with, so please send us your questions to rabbi@jewishgardens.com for the AMA Ask Me Anything presentation on YouTube and Facebook that's taking place on Thursday at 2:45 p.m. Also today at 11:30 is Corey Nadel's class on Tehillim and Torah reading. That's King David's Psalms and Tehillim. It's on Zoom. And beyond that, I want to wish everybody a wonderful day. Over and out. Yom Tov. Thank you for joining me here today. Thank you, Whitney.